Welcome back to Gender Decoded. Today, we're diving into a topic that's a little personal, a little statistical, and a whole lot relevant. How often couples have sex, what that means for happiness, and things have changed over time. Let's start with what the numbers are telling us. Only about 26% of couples are having sex once per week. Most report having sex just 1 to 2 times per month or even less. And yet, a healthy sex life is something many of us aim for. We want to feel close to our partners, meet their needs, and have ours met in return. But it's easy to get lost in questions like, how much sex is enough? Are we doing too much? Too little? Am I normal? Turns out, sexual frequency fluctuates naturally, and the data helps us make sense of that fluctuation without judgment. Here's what we found. Increasing sexual frequency to just once a week can boost your personal happiness. But beyond that, doing it more doesn't really add much. Men generally desire sex about twice as often as women at every stage of a relationship. And interestingly, in heterosexual marriages, when a wife is sexually satisfied, her husband tends to feel more satisfied in the relationship overall. Still, over half of women say they want to talk more about sex with their partners, but they hold back. The reasons? Fear of hurting their partner's feelings, discomfort with the topic, or embarrassment. And over time, satisfaction drops. Only 55% of women and 43% of men in relationships longer than 3 years report being sexually satisfied. Now let's talk history. In the 1990s, married couples were having more sex than people who never got married. But by 2004, that flipped. Never married Americans were having more sex than their married counterparts. In 1994, married folks averaged 3 times per week. Since then, those numbers have steadily declined. Today, the majority are having sex a few times a month at best. Here's a breakdown. In 1994, nearly 32% of married people were having sex 3 times per week, and 46% a few times per month. Now, only 25% report doing it once per week, and about 10% say they haven't had sex in the past year at all. So what's normal? Honestly, it depends on the couple. Communication is what sets the standard, not statistics. Normal could mean every day or once a year, as long as both partners are happy with it. But what about desire? Before age 60, most men think about sex daily. For women, only a quarter say they think about it frequently. Sexual fantasies taper off with age, but even later in life, men still fantasize about twice as often. And what about over a whole year? From 1989 to 1994, married couples averaged about 67 times per year. That held steady until about 2004. Then, we saw a drop. Couples with kids under 18 still tend to have more frequent sex, around 70 times a year, but even that has declined in recent years. Now, let's get into why sex is important. Beyond just physical satisfaction, intimacy matters. A lack of it is often cited as a core relationship issue. In fact, 59% of people aged 50 to 92 say sex is still at least somewhat important. Only 13% of men say sex doesn't matter at all in relationships, but 35% of women say the same. So what keeps people satisfied? Communication. Husbands feel more content when their wives are sexually satisfied. And open conversations about sex, even if they're awkward, can actually increase overall relationship happiness. But satisfaction doesn't last forever. In the first 6 months, 83% of both men and women say they're satisfied sexually. After 3 years, that drops to 55% of women and 43% of men. In one Australian study, fewer than half of men were satisfied with how often they were having sex. So what gets in the way? There are a few usual suspects: aging, poor health, pregnancy, kids, sterilization, or just getting used to each other. Over half of women want to bring up sex with their partner, but they don't. Not wanting to offend, discomfort, and embarrassment are the top barriers. For men, poor physical health is a major reason for decreased sex. And of course, busier work schedules and more time spent parenting also cut into time for intimacy. And finally, let's settle one last question. Can you have too much sex? According to experts, not really. As long as it's consensual and it feels right to both people, there's no such thing as too much. So what's the big takeaway here? Sex matters, but not in the way we often think. It's not about quantity. It's about quality, communication, and alignment. A satisfying sex life doesn't need to match some magic number. It just needs to work for you and your partner.